You're listening to the Manage My Home podcast, the podcast for property owners who would like help with their rental properties. This show is based on the RPM WV Phoenix team's experience in leasing and managing homes and will give you useful advice and tips to succeed with your rental property. And now, from Phoenix, Arizona, here is Lisa from RPM WV Phoenix.
Hi, and welcome to Manage My Home. This is Lisa with RPM Phoenix Valley. Today we are going to do our third and final segment on the must-haves for your Phoenix lease agreement. So today we are going to go over the Homeowners Association clause, the pet addendum, and move out lease renewal information, and then we're going to do our free tip at the end. So the first thing we're going to go over is the Homeowners Association addendum. We like to do a whole separate addendum to this rather than incorporating it in your original lease agreement. So in that addendum, we like to make sure that you include the name of the community and their phone number, and then advising the tenant that the home is in a community with a homeowners association, that the tenant's responsible for all the rules and regulations and to pay any fines. And then we also like to put a clause in there that the tenant basically indemnifies and holds both the homeowner and RPM harmless for any and all type of liability that could possibly come up during the lease term, be due to the homeowners association, basically. So those are some key things that we like to include in the homeowners association addendum. And then in the pet agreement, some key things that we suggest including lots of information about the pet. So the kind of pet, the size, the color. The reason that's so beneficial is this way when you go out to do an inspection, if you suddenly are finding animals that don't match what's on the pet agreement, then you know there's an unauthorized pet there. Also want to be sure that you're stating that the pet always has to be on a leash when they're outside of the property, that the tenant's responsible for, any disturbances from the pet feces. We also like to add a clause that the tenant's going to be liable should there be any kind of injury to a person or to a property from the pet. So all of those are some good things to keep in mind to add into your pet agreement. And then regarding the lease end date, so it is really good to specify what's going to happen at the end of the lease. Will it automatically convey to month, for example? That's what most of the leases here in Metro Phoenix do. So basically, if neither party provides 30 days written notice, it'll automatically convey to month. Some people like to put 60 days notice in there. Sometimes 60 days can be a little far out, for the homeowner and necessarily knowing what kind of increases they want to do. So that's why we stick with the 30-day increase on that. So basically, over our last podcasts, we have covered regarding the lease agreement, late fees, how to structure the late fees, including a legal notice fee. Be sure to include all names of all occupants. Be sure to spell out the appliances that are included, the time frame for a guest to be at the property before they need to complete an application, specifics on where the rent should be paid, what form of payment is included, who's responsible for such things as utilities, landscaping, pest control. And then today we rounded that out by going over the Homeowners Association addendum, the pet addendum, and then also incorporating some kind of verbiage in your lease regarding what's going to happen to lease at the end of the lease at the end of the lease agreement, whether it will convey to month. Also, it's a good idea to include move-out instructions in the lease as well. So if the tenant wants to be present, is there a certain amount of notice that they need to give you to request that? Does the request need to be in writing? Again, the more specific this lease can be, or really any contract can be, really the better for both parties, because then all expectations are up front. Our tip of the day does revolve around this idea of the 30-day, the month-to-month lease. So kind of an interesting little tip here. So let's say that your original lease comes due on the 15th of the month. And neither party provides notice, so it automatically conveys to month. So once it conveys to month, the end date of the lease will become the last day of the month. So if you wanted to serve the tenants with notice, you would have to do so on or before the first of the day you wish them to vacate. So even though your original lease came due on the 15th, once it makes that conversion to month, it actually runs from the 1st to the 30th, the 31st to 20th, whatever the last day of the month is. So that's why, either the tenant or the owner has to give notice on or before the 1st to vacate that month. So we appreciate everyone joining us. We hope you have enjoyed our 3-part series on the must-have for the lease, and join us next month.